Over the past 9 years, more than 2 million men and women of our armed forces have been circulated in and out of the Middle East, specifically Afghanistan and Iraq. Returning home has never been a more difficult challenge to the heroes of this once great nation. Veterans are faced with a wall of opposition from all subcultures of society when they are redeployed to the United States. Their fight for employment in a failing economy, the re-assimilation with civilian life after years in a combat zone, and an uninformed American populace hinders their efforts at regaining a normal life. There are too many cases in which veterans are turning to the streets as their only hope for survival. Shunned by a community of apathy and ignorance, veterans are falling by the wayside. It is estimated that 1 in every 3 homeless adults over the age of 25 is a veteran of the armed forces of these United States. Tonight, or on any given night, it is estimated between 130 and 200,000 veterans are going to sleep under bridges, in sewers and subway tunnels, and on metal grates with only cardboard as their comfort. Discrimination of veterans by corporations, the government, and the American public, as well as psychological and abuse factors, are the leading causes of homeless veterans in America.
You never thought we'd go to war after all the things we saw. It's April Fool's Day. Tomorrow never comes until it's too late.
My name is Glenn Reed.
My name is Melvin Davis.
My name is Joe Sluska.
Chris Delara, D-E-L-A-R-A.
My name is Larry Keating.
My profession is working with veterans, and I work for the Albany Housing Coalition.
I'm executive director of the Albany Housing Coalition. And we're an organization that for about 20 years has provided housing and services to homeless veterans here in the Capital District of New York.
Trained by the United States government to treat post-traumatic stress disorder.
In 1971, my father signed me into the military. I went to Vietnam, and I was in Da Nang for 13 months.
I went to Iraq in March of 2004.
I served in Okinawa from 1967 to 1968. I served in Vietnam as a river rat from 1968 to 1969.
I'm also a veteran and a member of the Army National Guard currently.
I'm working with veterans because clearly there is a need. There are people who are hurting. And people are people, as far as I'm concerned.
It is my hope today that the people that are returning from whatever conflict will be able to get treated for the PTSD rather than become homeless.
I work in this profession because when I left Iraq in 2007 and had served a year there, I came back with having a desire to continue the service that I thought I was giving to my soldiers, to assist them in helping them in what they needed to be successful for the mission.
You know, homeless and veteran are two words that shouldn't go together, and they unfortunately do.
My first encounter with a homeless veteran was when I was in Brooklyn, and the person was living on the street, and as I came up from the train, I would pass the box he lived in. And he came in one day, and his head was split from one end to the other, but he had an afro, and he looked like he was wearing a Walkman. And I brought him in the office, and he was shaking and baking, and I realized that his head had been stapled. We were on top of the High Street station in Brooklyn. And I said to him, you know, at what point do you think that you've had enough? And he turned to me and he said, you know, you think I live like the rest of the dirtbags. He says, when you come in tomorrow, stop by my box, and you'll see that my box is nowhere near as filthy as everybody else's. So he had now developed a point that he was doing well because he had a new box and he was living on the street. So the perception of the people that return, once they get involved in alcohol and drugs, they lose the ability to reason, and they start to justify whatever happens to them.
Yeah, I'm homeless, yeah. In fact, I'm from Philly, but I left Philadelphia to come over here because you can ride the trains and they don't say anything to you. In other words, they won't chase you off the trains or nothing. So I'm John Henry Rivers. I won February 25th, 1954. In Philadelphia. I enlisted to go into the United States Marine Corps. I came back in 1957, March 5th, 1957. I became eligible, when I turned 65, I became eligible for the military to start sending me a check for the rest of my life.
You ever get that?
Yeah, he done that. But here's the thing is this here. Last year, they stopped our veteran checks. Now why they done it, I don't know. I mean, being homeless, but I'm riding the trains all day long. The few dollars that I do have, I'm spending that wisely, asking people for money or whatever. So I am homeless, and they told me that they just stop sending me the checks.
And I have a large concern of one particular population that never seems to be addressed by anyone. We now have women in combat. And when I have dealt with people who are homeless veterans, I deal with men. And the men, they don't ask me about their children, but the first thing the woman asks me, when do I get my kids back?
Women veterans have serious issues in the military, as we know. Very high numbers, mostly unreported, but still high numbers of women who are sexually assaulted in the military. The real sad thing about what's happening with with our women veterans is that even today we don't recognize the accomplishments that they have made long before these wars, but in previous wars as well. And that when they come back, they are dealing with the same set of issues that male veterans are, plus a whole nother duffel bag of issues that they're dealing with because of what they are viewed as women veterans.
My name is Constance Lennon, and I was a homeless veteran. The reason why I went into the military is because there wasn't really jobs around, and I thought my brother was in the Marines, my father was in the Navy, and I liked the structure. I was the only woman in a company of like 200 guys. A lot of the people that are in now, a lot of the women, they are, they say that they're not in combat. Every woman that goes in is in combat. I was a mechanic. If a truck or a Jeep or whatever broke down in the battlefield or wherever, they're not going to get AAA to go get the car, get the vehicle, get the truck, and bring it to the shop. You're going to be the one that goes out and fixes the vehicle. We have women that were gunners on Jeeps. I mean, these women, these guys depended on these ladies. You know, you have to sort of become one of the guys, and sometimes that's a little bit hard. Now, because there's so much trauma that they see, so much trauma that's around them, there is no care like there is the guys, because it's been through all the wars. I mean, you go all the way back to World War I, Korea, you know, even farther back, there's always been help for the guys to go through PTSD, to go through the trauma, to go through the medical care. Well, now you have the women who are coming back, and you know, women are strong enough to do what they're doing, but they don't get the same care as they do when they come back. So far, we've found some of the programs sort of are like they build it up to where they help, and then once they sort of get the person going, they leave them. If the mother is suffering from whatever's happened in the service, the whole family is suffering. The women that are coming back are having a problem because of even back when I was in the service, the sexual harassment is prevalent. I mean, it is non-stop in places. There should be a meeting saying, okay, women only over here, because there's different requirements for women, and the guys over here. And not to segregate them, but there's programs out for the women, and let them talk, you know, like say, I was sexually harassed, okay, what do I do, you know, or, you know, I have a medical problem, where do I go, you know, or who can I talk to, who can help me? Some people just go into private, you know, back into the private lives, and you know, they don't, you know, seek help.
We're not doing enough for women veterans, and I think that that's going to be to our detriment as the years go by in the numbers of women who end up becoming homeless as a result of this.
What the American people should know about homeless veterans is there should never be a homeless veteran, period. You know, people who come back from war, in my particular case, one day I was in Vietnam, and when I took off out of Tan Son Nhut, they told us we were still under fire. And the stewardess got on the plane and said at one particular point, we're out of fire range, and the United States government would like to thank you for serving you. Well, next day I was in New York. You know, so I went from that type of an environment to this type of environment. There has to be some type of a program in place so that the people don't leave combat and become civilians. There needs to be a transition period in there. In the Second World War, there was somewhat of a transition period because they came back on a ship. So they were on a ship for so long, and they could interact with one another, and as they interact with one another, they were really doing the psychological work about the war is over and now we're going to a different life.
The problem is that once the cheering stops and you're sitting in solitude in your room and you're thinking about what may have happened to the guys that you left behind, or that you should be doing more, or maybe you didn't sacrifice the way the person who comes back in body bags do. When you're in your thoughts there alone, you don't even think about what most Americans what their understanding is, because they can't comprehend that feeling. They don't know what that feeling is. That feeling of loss and emptiness and despair, it only comes with people that have been in the situations that we have found ourselves in.
Well, looking back to Vietnam, I think that our society had a very difficult time accepting our veterans back. So they felt alienated. What's been described over the centuries, I guess, is, you know, shell shock, PTSD. It has many, many names. The effects of war, the effects of combat on a person goes right to your heart and your soul.
Mel had been in this house, and he went through a lot of stuff. And he probably told you what he went through. And there were many, many times when it didn't look like he was going to make the commitment to make the change that was necessary for him to move his life on.
I had a problem when I came home. I was unstable. It took me a whole lot of therapy to get me together. Most of my life, I was a drinker. When I came back from Nam, I was hospitalized a couple of times with stress, post-traumatic stress. I was just about 19. I went in at 17. You know, when I came home, I didn't get any parade. You know, they didn't give me no type of parade or anything like that. They called me a baby killer, a dope fiend. You know, and I didn't understand it. I was just almost turning 19 years old, and this is what it was all about as far, you know what I'm saying? And I didn't know nothing no different when I came home. I wouldn't go out when I first come home. I didn't understand what the problem was with me, and my mother used to talk to me and stuff, and take me to the park and stuff and sit me down, because all I wanted to do was stay in the house. And I hear noises and things, I'd be jumping and, what is that? And, you know, asking her, you hear that? And you know, it was a whole lot of stress that I went through, you know, because I couldn't adapt back when I came back home. I became a excessive drinker. I drank the whole lot. That's the only way I could see myself as coping with life after combat was drinking alcohol, and I became a chronic alcoholic. Finally, it got to a point that one day, you know, I'm saying I got sick and tired of being sick and tired of living a life like a bum. I went home, and my mother was crying. And I'll never forget that day. I had came in from being out a week. I was stinking. Beard had growed all on my face. My clothes was torn up. I had been hanging around in different places, you know, just like a bum. So she talked to me. She said, Randy, my middle name is Randy. She said, you have to do something with yourself. She said, son, you're gonna die. I don't know, for some reason, I kind of felt this time maybe I need to do something with myself, you know what I'm saying? All these years of anguish and pain and thinking about my friends who got killed, and I started thinking, and I said to myself, you know, man, you know, it's been a long time. It's time for you to do something, try to do something with your life, man, you know what I'm saying? I made attempts, but I failed many times, you know.
6 December 2003, Mosul, Iraq. Bravo Company, the 3rd Platoon and elements of 1st Platoon, gonna conduct an air assault to the northeast. Should have 4 Blackhawks coming in, going into a town called Kalichi. Should be primarily a Kurdish town. Conduct an area engagement, try to foster a positive image with the U.S. forces, as well as go after one bad guy, Fadil Yunus. See if we can get some information onto his whereabouts and possibly detain him and search his residence.
Where your CP is. Top over.
Cleared their first house, nothing but weapons.
Here we are in Kalakchia. It's a Kurdish neighborhood we just infiltrated. And all the people very curious about us here. There's a good Kurdish man right here. Got a great knife. First Lieutenant Big Bone Pete Chacon.
So he said he's 3-7 is currently conducting some engagement of the population.
Yeah, I know that. He called me.
He said he's moving down through the area.
We've trained these people to be trained killers. That's what we trained them to do. We actually put them in treatment and give them a firearm with a grenade on it and have them march and chant the word kill. Then we bring them back into civilian life and say, well, why don't you act normally?
Most of society is clueless about the issues of veterans' issues. There's a lot of flag waving, and there's a lot of yellow ribbons everywhere you go in different places, but the reality is that's just political slogans that do not really make a difference.
And the thing that has never happened before, that's not recognized we have never, as a country, ever put anyone back into combat. And because there's no draft, we keep recycling the same person over and over and over. And if you can come out of, in my opinion, one tour with some degree of sanity, God's been on your side. But then to put you into another situation, and in a third situation or a fourth situation, I don't think the human mind can take that. I don't think the human mind can continuously be redeployed and redeployed and redeployed because we're just burning these people out.
I went into the military for the sole purpose of, prior to going to the military, I had a severe drug habit, and I didn't like where my life was going. Basically, I needed a change of pace. I needed to get my act together, and it was good. It was the best decision I ever made. There was a lot of pros, but there was a lot of cons as well. When I came home, right from within the first week, my ex-wife knew something was wrong. I just wouldn't talk. If I walked anywhere and I saw somebody of Middle Eastern descent, I was freaking out. I didn't trust anybody. I had major trust issues. My anger was completely out of control. You look at me wrong, problem. Developed a cocaine habit because it would keep me up days on end. It got to the point where, Albany cops were at my door consistently. Was never arrested because of always a veteran. He needs help. I didn't know a lot of the services that were available to vets. I should have, but I didn't. And the reason why I didn't know that is because I chose not to seek it out because of all the stuff that I was going through. I didn't want to deal with it. I ran away from it. I think a lot of people have a misconception of we're just angry individuals, that we thrive on combat. We're not bad people. We're not bad individuals. It's just that until you've been put in a stressful situation for a year and a half, every day, all day, just constant stress, you'll never know. You'll never know. Stress is getting shot at every day, wondering if you're gonna live through that day, getting up the next day and say, well, it's just another day. Hopefully I'll walk through that gate again in one piece. That's constant stress. Since I've been out, I feel like I don't have a purpose. I know it's there. I just haven't seen it yet. You know what I mean? I just haven't seen it yet. I'm proud to have done, to be those few that have the balls to fight for their country. I love my country. Love it to death. And if something was to happen tomorrow, I'd be the first one to pick the rifle back up. I would. I wouldn't change a tune. I wouldn't change a thing.
The one thing that we've discovered here is that simple caring about another veteran on a day-to-day basis and being involved in their life and their successes, their daily successes and failures is so critically important to the vet. And it really does. It builds self-esteem, it builds a trusting relationship, and we've seen that when folks leave here, they come back because there is a relationship that's been established and they feel at home and they feel safe and they feel secure. And if they've got an issue or a problem, they know that there will be someone, there will be another veteran who they can talk to.
wounded veterans, and we have, advocacy groups that we never had before. And obviously we don't have enough of them. And so, the people who are charitable seem to be the veterans. The veterans are the people that are taking care of the veterans. The veterans are the ones who defended the population who didn't go to war. When are we going to get the government to say, when people go and they ask the people in Congress, how many of you have children that are in the war? Not a whole lot. So, when are we going to build the safety nets and support the people as they come back?
I try to focus on what we do here today. And the accomplishments that we have is in many cases the men that and women that we've worked with, not just here in this house, but throughout our program, we can say that where they started and where they finished, that they advanced, that they recovered from whatever ailments that they were. We've made people so that they weren't homeless anymore.
And this is where I'm at today. I come to see my buddy. I'm sober, I'm happy, got a job making $55,000 a year, you know what I'm saying? I'm doing pretty good and it's getting better. Got my own unit. I'm doing good, you know what I'm saying? I drive around sober today. I talk sober today. It's no going back. That's not in my vocabulary, drunk no more.
And because of my knee injury, I got out of medical discharge. So from then on, I got different government jobs. I worked at the Watervliet Arsenal. I've worked for the Census Department and the Post Office. Right now, mostly I volunteer at the VA. I volunteer on the 7th floor in the daycare center. That's with veterans who need help daily for their care. Member of the Disabled American Veterans for 28 years. And that's actually what I've done.
I work for transportation, mobile air transportation, freight. So it's hard work, but it's good work. So keeps me busy, keeps me out of trouble. So right now, sobriety. That's my number one issue. That's my number one issue right now. Sobriety and happiness. Yeah.
When people say the right things, they'll say, thank you for your service. But then if you say to them, listen, I got a veteran here who's got some issues, and I'd like he needs a room to stay tonight. I know you got a 5-bedroom. There's only would you take him in? Oh no, I couldn't possibly do that. That's the hard part. That's what I'm saying. I'm disappointed because I think that the rhetoric doesn't match the action. The slogans are nice and everything is pretty and a nice little box when we have Memorial Day parades, but in the end, it's just us.